It's good to see you today. Just a couple of things before I get started. I want to recognize a couple of people. First of all, it's good to have Joe back after being down in his back for several weeks. It's good to have Miss Bessie here today. It's been a long time. Yes, absolutely. It's been a while since she's been able to be with us. Great to see her walk in this morning. I want to just make the guys aware of a date that you need to lock away in the back of your minds. September 25th and 26th. That is a Friday and Saturday. And we're going to have a men's retreat. We're going to a ranch outside of Junction. We're going to spend some time there together and just being guys, a lot of that and some other things. And so we want to encourage you to be a part of that. We'll have much more details about that next week. We just want to get you aware of the date and begin thinking about that. There is an outline on the back of the bulletin, and hope everybody got a bulletin, and encourage you to take notes if you'd like to do so. If you're going to be in a group meeting tonight, that'll be especially important to you. The notes on the back, that'll be the focus of your discussion this evening, and encourage you to be a part of a group if you're not already a part. Most of us are or will be parents, and as parents, we know the importance of educating our children. We teach them how to crawl and walk and talk. We teach them to feed themselves and potty train them. We teach them to recognize and avoid harmful things and people. We allow them to do things around the house that we could certainly do quicker and better ourselves, just because experience is the best teacher. And when they get to a certain age, we send them off to school so they can learn things that are of some importance to life on earth. And we teach our children all these things because we love them. Jesus called individuals to follow him, to be his disciples. A disciple is a learner. When Jesus called people to follow him, he called them to accept him as their teacher. If you want to fully experience the life Jesus offers, you must accept him as teacher. You must accept his teaching. Jesus must become your life coach. You must trust that what he says is right. You must trust Jesus to teach you how to live. One of Jesus' most famous stories is about the construction trade, which is something he was intimately familiar with. And this story centers around two builders and the foundation upon which they each built their house. Now, there is a version of this story that is one of the best known stories in American literature. This American classic has inspired movies and songs and books. And the basic elements of the story are, the primary characters are builders. They each build a house. Then the structural integrity of the houses was not equal, and each house faced a test. And all the houses did not survive the test. Anybody know what that story is? Yes, the Three Little Pigs. We know the story. Each little pig built a house. One was built with hay and straw, one was built with sticks, and one was built with bricks. And each one had a visit from the big bad wolf. And we all know what he said. Let me in, or I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. And each little pig had the same response to the wolf's request. Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. And the wolf blew down the houses made of straw and sticks and ate the little pigs, unless you're watching the Saturday morning cartoons and he did not eat the little pigs, because that would be too gruesome for the children. So they just go to the other guy's house. But the big bad wolf could not blow down the house built of bricks, and the little pig inside was safe. In Jesus' story, 2 houses are built. So let's put these 2 houses side by side and see what we learn. And the first thing we learn is that you are a house builder. And the house you build is your life. And you build your house by the choices you make. Every commitment I fulfill or fail to fulfill, every relationship I enter into, every job or career choice, every promise I keep or break, every moral decision, good or bad, becomes a part of my house. You are constructing a life. And the choices you make determine the quality of that life. We are each one responsible for our own house. Other people may make decorating suggestions for your house, but you and only you are responsible for the house you build. We are all house builders, and there is no alternative. And as house builders, we each face the storm. The wolf comes to the door of each little pig's house. In Jesus' story, his words are identical for both houses. The rains came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Both houses. Everyone faces the storm. So, this is not a story about avoiding storms. Author John Ortberg shares a story of a married couple who had a baby born with Down syndrome. And he writes, some well-meaning friends added to the parents' pain. God must have a special love for you to give you such a gift. Everyone is watching you to see how you respond. I'm sure you'll do the right thing. And that was before the baby was born, whether or not they would abort the baby or not. And then he continues, this is not a gift. It is a storm. And there may be gifts that come in its wake, but it is a storm all the same. If you were to ask the parents, they would tell you that this little life is unspeakably precious to them, that it has brought blessing and growth to their lives. But they would also tell you that they'd trade that growth in a heartbeat if this little life could be given the healing and restoration and wholeness God intended all his children to have. You know, as we get older and we look back at what has happened in our lives, we see storms that before we endured those things, we thought we would never have had to experience. And because we've experienced those storms, we wonder what storms lie ahead. Personally, I'm glad I don't know. It is enough to know that there will be storms. Jesus said, do not worry about tomorrow. Let tomorrow worry about itself. Living faithfully is a large enough task for today. The storms of today present a great enough challenge. Well, we all build a house. We all face the storm, and the storms test the house. Next slide, please. The storms test the house. If you're examining a house with a view of buying it, likely the condition of the foundation will not even cross your mind. But it should, because really nothing is more important about a house than its foundation. And the reason is because the storm is coming. In Jesus' story, you choose the foundation upon which you will build your house, your life. And the foundation influences the choices you make as you build your house. The storm is coming. Do I cheat on the test at school? Do I manipulate my coworkers to make myself look better? Do I sell my soul to my career? A storm is coming. Too many people want to choose a foundation and build a structure that pleases and satisfies them, and then plead with God to save them when the storm comes. Or better yet, prevent the storm from coming at all. I know God is gracious and loving beyond our understanding, but we may be expecting more of God than even He can deliver. The storm is coming. Everyone builds a house. The wise man, the fool, eats little pig. Everyone builds a house. Everyone faces a storm. The wolf knocks on each door. And what we have built will be tested by the storm. So what differentiates one house from another is simply the foundation. The foolish choice is to build on sand, to place trust in that which cannot withstand the storm. If your foundation is constructed of the values that reign in the world, then the materials that you use to build your house, the choices you make, will reflect that choice. The foolish man who built on the sand guaranteed his own destruction. And notice that Jesus did not call him wicked, just foolish. Jesus told a story about a man who had an abundant grain harvest. And because he had so much in storage already, he had no choice but to tear down his barns and build bigger barns. And he was very proud of himself. I have all I need. I can enjoy the rest of my life in comfort. But God showed up that very night and said to him, "You foolish, foolish man. Before this night is over, you will die. And who will get all that you set aside for yourself?" The man was a fool. Not because it's wrong to set aside money for later years, but because he built his life on the worldly foundation of personal success and pleasure and comfort, without giving any thought to the reality that one day his life would end and he would stand before his Maker and judge. His storm was death, and it dismantled all he had built and swept him away. You know, every time a child does something foolish, a parent asks the same question. One little word, 3 letters. Why? Why did you draw on the wall with a permanent marker? Why did you leave your bike on the driveway behind the car? Why did you have to see how far you could stick that Cocoa Puff up your nose? Why? And children always have the same response. 3 words. I don't know. And this is why, parents, if you have small children, I'll give you a little bit of advice here. Play dates with other children are a bad idea. Because you put 2 or more children together, and the older one, the 3-year-old, will tell the others, "Listen, I've been around. You'll be blamed for a lot of stuff. You'll be asked often why. Stick to the standard answer. I don't know." And they don't know. If they were operating on reason and logic, they wouldn't have done it. If you ask the foolish man in the story of Jesus, why did you build your house on the sand? What do you think his response would be? I don't know. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Did any of you read Garrison Keillor? If you don't, you probably should. A character in Garrison Keillor's writings is a Lutheran minister named David Inkvest, who despairs at the sheer foolishness of human behavior. And Keillor writes, David glanced at dear Abby now and then, and it alarmed him how often she recommended ministers. Talk to your ministers, he'd say to the 14-year-old girl in love with the married 50-year-old mechanic who's in prison for rape. Why did Abby assume that a minister could deal with this? This poor old guy in his study paging through Revelation when the door flies open and a teenage girl in a tank top bursts in, weeping passion for a married felon 3 times her age. What is the good reverend to do? Try to interest her in 2 weeks of handicrafts at Camp Tonawanda? Believe me, I know how the guy feels. Jesus tells about the 2 house builders at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. And he begins a story, therefore, after everything he said, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And after describing the wisdom of the first builder, he says, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. Jesus came as a teacher, and he did that because he loves us. His teachings are a sure foundation upon which we build our lives. He taught us about God. He taught us the best way to live in the world he created. And each teaching of Jesus is like a brick that we use to build our house. One of the strangest houses in the U.S., and probably anywhere in the world, is the Winchester House, located in San Jose, California. It was built by Sarah Winchester, who was the wife of gun magnate William Winchester. Yes, that Winchester. Their infant daughter died suddenly of a very mysterious disease in 1966. Mr. Winchester died in 1881. What did I say that first date? 1866. That's what I intended to say. Mr. Winchester died in 1881. And he left his wife with a multi-million-dollar fortune. And she began construction on the house in 1884. Construction on the house continued almost nonstop until her death in 1922. That would be 38 years. Legend has it that Mrs. Winchester held a seance every night to get instructions from the spirits about what she should build the next day. And in the morning, she would meet with her construction foreman and tell him what to build that day. There were no blueprints, just Mrs. Winchester's instructions. Next picture. When construction stopped, the structure contained 2,000 doors, 160,000 windows. The front doors cost $3,000. Adjusting for inflation, those doors today would be worth $70,000 and were used only once by the men who installed them. There are twists and turns and secret passages. Look at this here. It just goes there and it stops. There are secret passages. There are stairs that go up to the ceiling and no further. You see this right here? There's a sign right below that door that says the door to nowhere. It just opens up, and this door over here opens up into a wall. It is estimated that when construction was halted, the structure contained between 500 and 600 rooms. And today, due to fire and deconstruction and remodeling, only about 160 rooms remain. Mrs. Winchester believed that the house was haunted by the ghost of those killed by her husband's rifles. And she hoped that all the twists and the turns would confuse any spirits that might be happening to follow her. It is also believed that Mrs. Winchester had the house built in such a way as to confuse death, that death could not find her. But death still came, because death always shows up. The people of the world are not the people Jesus was talking about in the story of the wise and the foolish builders. Yes, they too build lives, and they build on faulty foundations that someday will face a storm and be swept away. But Jesus wasn't speaking to those people. He was speaking to us. He was speaking to those who hear his words and who make the choice to either put them into practice or to ignore them. He was talking to us, brothers and sisters, who claim Jesus as Savior and Lord, who claim to follow Jesus, who read the book and have the knowledge of the foundational teaching that was given to guide the choices that we make as we build our lives. It was written to us. The next picture, please. This is called Rollover Pass on Bolivar Peninsula, which is near Galveston. It is a great fishing place. Up to the top is the Gulf of Mexico. Down below is the bay. And when the tide's coming in or the tide's going out, there's just a constant water flow there. And it is like a highway for fish. So it's a very popular place. You see the houses there. Rollover Pass. Next picture. This is Rollover Pass after Hurricane Ike in 2008. The bridge is still there, it's damaged, but everything else is gone. Next picture. I think I've showed this picture before. This is also Bolivar Peninsula. After Hurricane Ike in 2008. On past the single house that's standing, on further down the road somewhere, Bolivar Pass is just a little bit down this way. But Debbie's aunt and uncle had a house just a little bit down from where this house is. And as you can see, everything else is swept clean. And there's one house standing. I don't know that anybody knows exactly why. You can see the foundation at the bottom is kind of washed out from underneath. But the house is still there. That's the house Jesus calls us to be. By listening to the words of Jesus and putting them into practice, it's not that the storm does not come, and it's not that we don't see everything around us washed away. But the storm comes, and the house is still there. Now, you may want to keep the big bad wolf out of your house. But if you don't build your foundation, your house, on the sure foundation of the teaching of Jesus, he's going to blow your house down and eat you. And what will you say when the Lord asks you, why? Why did you build your house on that foundation? Wise or foolish? Which foundation are you building your life on? You know, the wisest choice you can ever make is to give your life and your soul to the Lord Jesus Christ. And if you've not done that, then I urge you to do that. Because if you haven't, you're building your house on sand. And when the storm comes, all that you've built will be gone. If you have any need that you need to share with us, if you need to give your life to serving and following Jesus, whatever your need might be. If you need to share something, you can do that now. Let's stand and sing this song.